The Medicae ward operates on the rhythm of regulated death. Lumen strips flicker above rows of numbered cots, each bearing its cargo of Imperial expenditure. Wounded whose utility has expired, whose continued existence requires resources better allocated elsewhere. Servo skulls drift patrol patterns between the beds, their picked capture lenses dilating to record each breath, each word, each gesture for the compliance auditors who will review the footage in sterile chambers 3 levels above. Sister Hospitaller Cassia moves through this inventory of suffering with practiced efficiency. Her hands, scarred by years of antiseptic and acid exposure, carry the tools of authorized mercy. A breviary bound in grease-dark leather and an ampule of the Emperor's peace. Between the pages of sacred text, pressed flat as a confession, lies a violet flower from a monastery garden she will never see again. A fragment of beauty preserved in a place designed for ending. Guardsman Vec occupies cot 42. The data slate clipped to his rail displays the bureaucratic architecture of compassion, fractures catalogued, infection graded, prognosis calculated. At the bottom, stamped in red ink, the authorization that transforms killing into mercy. Red Sigil 49. A. Peace. Authorized by Medicae Prime Hadron. In the Imperium, death is a supply item, allocated through proper channels, audited for compliance. Cassia breaks the ampule's seal with mechanical precision. The liquid inside catches the ward's sickly luminescence, a chemical cocktail designed to ease the transition from Imperial asset to Imperial memory. She begins the ritual recitation, words worn smooth by repetition. Benediction of quietus, terse form. By the Emperor's will, your suffering ends. By his mercy, your service is complete. The pick sensors track her movements as she leans forward, their machine spirits recording the angle of approach, the duration of contact. What they cannot capture is the weight of the moment when she places her lips against his forehead, the last kiss that seals the ritual, transforms clinical termination into something approaching human connection. The gesture exists in no manual, appears on no procedural flowchart, yet it persists, a small rebellion hidden in the space between heartbeats. By his grace your soul finds peace, she concludes, then adds in a whisper meant only for the dying, I'm sorry. The phrase violates Protocol 17, emotional distance during mercy administration. The servo skulls register the deviation, their cogitators flagging unauthorized sentiment for future review. Yet she speaks it anyway, smuggling personal sorrow into sacred duty. Vec's breathing shallows as the chemicals take effect. His lips move, expelling a final word with his last conscious breath. Elena. The name hangs in the recycled air like evidence. Personal attachments are contraband in Imperial Medicae facilities, each syllable a potential vector for the emotional, in weakness that once shattered the galaxy. The surveillance apparatus captures everything, the unauthorized apology, the ritual kiss, the dying man's forbidden word. Cassia adjusts the regulation sheet fold and refuses to look toward the auditor's observation alcove. In the Imperium of Man, every act of love carries the seed of its own destruction, and every mercy administered comes with a price that someone, someday, will be required to pay in full. The Administratum processes 14 billion authorization forms daily across the segmentum, and among the most frequently stamped are those governing the human heart. Love and mercy flow through identical bureaucratic channels, rationed with the same methodical precision applied to ammunition quotas and protein distributions. In filing chambers that stretch beyond sight, clerks apply 2 stamps with particular frequency. Sanctioned Intimacy Permit 7 Theta for those seeking connection, and Red Sigil 49A for those requesting release from suffering. Marriage begins as Contract 7 Alpha, requiring 17 signatures and genetic compatibility assessments before 2 citizens may legally share quarters. Courtship occurs in designated zones under servoskull. Supervision, conversations recorded for signs of excessive sentiment. Physical contact follows the graduated intimacy schedule. Hand-holding after 30 days of compliance, embraces after 90, reproductive contact only post-sanctification. Each approved union receives its sanctioned intimacy permit, 7 theta, authorizing measured affection within prescribed parameters. The permit specifies living space allocation, ration adjustments, scheduled conjugal cycles, and devotional scripts to recite before contact. Mercy follows parallel authorization chains. Families petition for writs of quietus when suffering exceeds projected recovery value. Files ascending through Medicae Sub to Medicae Prime to ecclesiarchal review. Approval returns as Red Sigil 49. A. Peace authorized. Ampules are logged by batch and dose, their movement tracked from Mechanicus Vat to bedside. The kiss that follows, if any, appears nowhere in the documentation. These systems converge by design. Emotional compliance auditors cross-reference affection violations with mercy petitions, creating cruel mathematics where caring too deeply reduces one's ability to help loved ones when they suffer. A husband who embraces his wife beyond regulation discovers his father's quietus deferred pending attitudinal rectification. A daughter maintaining unauthorized vigil finds her mercy allocation reduced to non-euphoric formulation. The same corridor serves both offices in Sister Cassia's district. Left, confessional of purity codes. Right, mercy administration. The queue bends around corners either direction. Young couples recite catechisms to skull-mounted auspex, proving their hearts properly ordered. Elderly petitioners balance Medicae scans, waiting to learn whether their spouse's pain qualifies for ending. Both leave with stamped parchment and appointment dates. The apparatus shares more than architecture. Personnel rotate between emotional and mercy compliance roles. Servo skulls, timing kisses, also verify deaths. Cogitators tallying breeding quotas simultaneously allocate ampules. One bureaucratic machine, dual functions, determining whom citizens may love and whom they may release. The logic is explicit. Unauthorized emotional attachment weakens imperial resolve. Soldiers with private loyalties hesitate during crucial moments. Unauthorized mercy wastes resources. Premature death steals potential service from the war effort. Both systems, therefore, harden the populace, forging citizens who exist solely for imperial benefit, stripped of emotional complications that might impede duty. The Imperium's emotional architecture was forged in Betrayal's aftermath. When the War Master's rebellion finally guttered out in 014 M31, Terra lay in ruins, and trust had become humanity's deadliest luxury. The lesson carved into imperial consciousness was stark, undeniable. Love makes traitors. Horus had loved his father emperor, yet struck him down. 18. Primarchs had sworn eternal loyalty. 9 fell to chaos through bonds of brotherhood and devotion. The mathematics were brutal. Emotional attachment provided vectors for corruption that no fortress walls could seal. From this crucible emerged the decree of necessary distances. Cardinal Matthias Voss presented his findings to the reconstituted Senatorum Imperialis from a lectern built over palace rubble, speaking to survivors who had watched beloved comrades transform into demon spawn. His thesis was clinically precise. Emotional bonds beyond prescribed limits invited chaos infiltration. Personal affection created vulnerabilities that the enemy exploited with surgical efficiency. The stronger the connection, the greater the leverage when corruption came to twist love into damnation. The Committee for Effective Orthodoxy drafted regulations under siege time protocols. Courtship would occur under clerical observation. Devotional affection would redirect from persons to institutions. Mourning would strip away names and assign grief to communal rites. The creed hardened around a simple principle: reserve your deepest love for the faceless emperor. and you will never betray him for another's face. Parallel necessity drove the Medicae Mercy protocols. Battlefields of the heresy had generated casualties beyond all treatment capacity. Entire worlds became triage stations where wounded defenders begged for death that could not be granted. Apothecaries performed mercy with bolt pistols, while precious analgesics were reserved for those whose recovery served strategic value. Cardinal Voss witnessed this calculus personally during Terra's siege, moving between aid stations where men died screaming while resources were allocated through rational calculation rather than compassionate impulse. The experience convinced him that mercy, like love, required systematic management. Unregulated compassion led to waste, emotional and material resources squandered on sentiment rather than distributed through proper channels. The Emperor's peace would be compounded in Mechanicus vats and issued by requisition. Death would dress itself in prayer, but follow logistics. Voss designed both systems as complementary solutions to the same fundamental problem: human emotion as strategic liability. The decree established emotional distance requirements. The protocols established mercy allocation procedures. Both used identical authorization structures, shared personnel, matching stamps and signatures. Red ink for both, the color of blood, of sacrifice, of necessary choices made in humanity's service. Implementation moved like doctrine across the recovering Imperium. Sisters Hospitaller learned to bless and to deny. Confessors cross-trained as emotional compliance auditors. The same picked sensor networks observed kisses and deaths. Sanctioned intimacy permit, 7 Theta. Red sigil, 49, A. 2 faces of one machine. Archivists preserved one unusual relic from Voss's office, a violet pressed between ledger pages, taken from a mortuary garden beside a triage field. Even architects of distance kept something close. Ward 7 operates on the mathematics of measured compassion. The morning queue splits beneath flickering lumen script boards, comfort visits, QA, breeding consultations, QB. Sister Cassia processes both streams from her plasteel desk, stamps arranged in precise rows beside cogitators displaying daily quotas, 16 comfort visits authorized, 23 breeding consultations scheduled, 7 peace ampules allocated, pending final approval signatures. The survival tax here is emotional labor performed under constant surveillance. Citizens must demonstrate proper imperial affection while suppressing personal attachment that might indicate spiritual weakness. They rehearse empathy like drill formations, public devotion to the faceless emperor, private restraint with those whose faces might make them hesitate when duty calls. QA advances in 15-minute intervals. The Ventris family clutches requisition forms for their daughter in Cot 19, Gene Plague, consuming her nervous system with methodical precision. Standard comfort. Visit protocols allow supervised contact, conversation monitored for excessive sentiment, physical affection limited to hand-holding through regulation gloves. The father's permit specifies paternal acknowledgement without emotional investment. The mother's restricts her to maternal recognition within acceptable parameters. QB processes genetic compatibility assessments under servo-skull observation. Couples practice sanctioned litanies of affection before bronze Aquilus, while Auspex measures pupil dilation for unauthorized attachment. Compatibility metrics scroll in green gold. Recessives, Hive. Targets, projected fecundity rates. If approved, sanctioned intimacy permit. 7 Theta stamps down, granting embraces on feast days and reproductive contact per cycle. Between the queues, black markets whisper. Slow mercy circulates through underhab networks, diluted peace ampules providing euphoric relief without death. Purchased vigil by vigil when official mercy is denied. Feeling suppressants move alongside, chemical dampeners stronger than daily rations, for workers who have fallen in love without permits and must be emptied to keep their positions. Everyone knows the Arbites will sweep eventually. No one knows which day. Cassia violates protocol at cot 19. The child's breathing rattles like broken machinery. Regulation allows the mother 2 minutes of contact through sterile barriers. When pleading eyes meet hers, Cassia makes her choice. She repositions a servo skull during incense prayers, angling its optical sensor away from the cot. The mother cradles her daughter's skull against regulation cloth and hums an off-world lullaby for 7 minutes, maybe 8. Afterward, Cassia logs the extended visit as Standard Comfort Protocol, Medical Necessity Authorization. Her scarred hands type without tremor while PIC sensors record angles and timestamps. The surveillance apparatus captures her actions but misses intent, logging kindness as procedural compliance. From the observation alcove above, Auditor Thane's silhouette shifts behind armored glass. His sigil glows amber on the doorframe as machine spirits flag temporal deviations for review. The ward resumes its regulated rhythm, hearts rationed by increment, mercy measured by the minute. Auditor Thane's chamber houses 2 desks that serve the Imperium's dual obsessions. The left processes emotional compliance violations, surveillance footage of unauthorized embraces, chemical analysis of tears shed beyond regulation, reports of excessive attachment flagged by servo skull observation. The right manages mercy allocation requests, medical assessments, peace ampule distribution logs, writs of quietus pending authorization. Between them sits a single cogitator that cross-references both datasets with algorithmic precision, transforming love into liability through mathematical calculation. The personnel structure reflects this convergence. Emotional compliance auditors wear the aquila and key of sanctioned intimacy, while simultaneously serving as mercy protocol supervisors, carrying the red sigil of authorized quietus. Most functionaries flip between roles daily. Confessor Valdris processes reports of excessive attachment through brass confession grills on Tuesdays, then receives petitions for euthanasia authorization on Thursdays. The same stylus signs both violation notices and death warrants, institutional efficiency eliminating the luxury of specialized compassion. Tech Priest Hadron oversees the surveillance infrastructure that makes this dual control possible. His mechadendrites interface directly with PIC sensor networks that monitor both kisses and deaths without distinction. Servo skulls, timing embraces also verify peace ampule administration. The machine spirits make no moral calculations. They simply record temporal variances, emotional displays, and procedural deviations into unified data streams, feeding the cross-reference algorithms. The system's elegant cruelty emerges through data correlation. Citizens flagged for emotional deviation receive reduced mercy allocations when suffering claims those they love too deeply. Worker Hale's 47-second embrace violation triggered automatic reclassification of his father's peace authorization from euphoric to standard formulation. Death without comfort. The Ventress family's unauthorized vigil downgrades their daughter's pain management to non-essential comfort care. Care too much, and your capacity to provide merciful release diminishes proportionally. Thane embodies these contradictions daily. His personnel evaluations praise Sister Cassia's empathy and dedication. His surveillance reports document her temporal violations and unauthorized gestures. The same hand that writes commendations signs reduction orders, genuine appreciation constrained by institutional imperatives. He advocates privately for improved medical conditions while publicly enforcing emotional distance protocols. Temporal variance detected in Ward 7. Hadron's Vox Grill announces during morning audit. Sister Cassia, comfort visit extension, 7.3 minutes beyond regulation. The violation appears simultaneously on both desks, emotional compliance breach and mercy protocol deviation. Thane's stylus hovers between classification options while surveillance feeds display regulated affection performed under mechanical observation across the district. The feedback loop operates with mathematical certainty. Love measured in seconds, mercy calculated through algorithms, compassion rationed by bureaucratic precision. The watchers maintain dual ledgers for the same breath, recording both feeling and ending with identical stamps in matching red ink. Forge Pharmacia 117 operates dual production lines from identical vat cathedral chambers, machine spirits processing molecular chains that differ by mere atomic arrangements. Clarity compounds bubble in gray oil slick solutions, while peace ampules distill clear as melted glass. The same cogitators regulate both formulations, mechadendrites switching between emotional suppressants and death euphoriants with algorithmic precision. Identical containers bear different labels. Nutrient-fortified CC9 versus Peace, batch 72/Gamma49A. Clarity flows through daily rations as oxytocin antagonists blended with catecholamine stabilizers. Dosage scales by labor tier. Hab cleaners receive CC7, Manufacturum crews CC9, Guard Tithe, Lots CC11 for deployment conditioning. Citizens consume regulated emotional dampening with protein paste. Neural chemistry adjusted to prevent deep attachments that might compromise Imperial loyalty. Affection becomes theoretical. Grief transforms into administrative inconvenience. Peace ampules follow parallel supply chains in the same transport vessels. Distribution clerks process both requisitions using matching authorization codes, servo skulls, logging inventory through identical manifest procedures. The chemistry choreographs death, analgesic flood with respiratory depression, euphoria lasting 15 to 40 seconds before systems dim. Underground markets exploit this chemical relationship through opposing addictions. Worker hail, flagged for embrace violations, purchases, slow mercy, diluted peace, providing numbness without termination. He learns the curve. Too little, and anguish shouts. Too much, and lungs forget breathing. Conversely, love addicts trade shifts for clarity neutralizers, experiencing unregulated connection during off hours before returning to chemically dampened compliance. Elite formulations reveal systemic hierarchy through molecular discrimination. High-ranking officials receive modified compounds, emotional suppressants with reduced potency preserving strategic empathy. Their peace contains euphoric enhancers rather than death agents, providing transcendent experiences during emergency procedures that leave them renewed rather than terminated. The same chemistry serves different castes through discrete container markings visible only to authorized personnel. Tech Priest Hadron signs both manifests with identical mechadendrites, while incense curls over cogitators reconciling inputs with expected deaths. The system reinforces itself. Suppressed connection necessitates controlled mercy, while denied compassionate death creates demand for illicit emotional release. The Mechanicus provides necessary compounds for this grim equilibrium with cold efficiency. Sister Cassia recognizes the scent before seeing Worker Hale's vial in corridor alcoves. She documents incidents as exhaustion, understanding that no authorized forms exist for deaths not yet decided. The pharmaceutical infrastructure transforms human need into chemical categories, rationing both feeling and ending through identical supply chains that serve power's requirements rather than mercy's demands. Mercy House 7 occupies a decommissioned heat exchanger beneath Manufacturum Spine Kappa, where recycled air tastes of metal and old prayers. Entry requires 3 doors and careful lies. The first accepts a pilgrim's phrase whispered to rusted grillwork. The second demands a ration chip coded to non-existent hab quarters. At the third, scarred hands place palm prints on brass plates, while hidden auspex monitors cardiac rhythms. Panic heartbeats trigger lockdown protocols that seal the sanctuary until dawn. Inside, psychic dampeners hum behind corrugated walls, masking emotional resonance from Arbite's psycher sweeps. Null baffles line converted pipe chambers. while servo-frankincense burns in ceramic cups, confusing olfactory sensors with sacred smoke. The lighting stays deliberately dim to prevent pick glare, shadows pooling in alcoves draped with stolen ecclesiarchal cloth. They come seeking what imperial law prices beyond reach: unmonitored connection and unauthorized peaceful death. Worker Hale and his wife occupy a narrow booth, clarity neutralizers flowing through improvised IV lines to counteract daily ration suppressants. Their sanctioned intimacy permit. 7 Theta authorizes touch on feast days only. Here they hold each other without servo-skull observation, whispering names instead of catechisms. Payment flows in shift credits and promises of silence. Adjacent chambers house the mercy services. Terminal patient Vex, denied red sigil. 49A, due to marginal recovery potential, receives black market peace from diluted ampules. The chemistry remains identical to imperial formulations, but context transforms clinical termination into genuine compassion. His daughter holds his ungloved hand, while unauthorized quietus takes effect, no requisition forms documenting his chosen ending. Grandmother Vess arrives carrying forged Medicae documents and her granddaughter's trembling fingers. Official comfort visits were denied as non-essential emotional maintenance. But here she purchases final hours together. The child counts pulse beats at her wrist while Vess shares off-world lullabies that violate emotional purity codes. When peace finally comes, it arrives through unregulated mercy rather than administrative necessity. The tender orchestrates these dual services from shadow-draped alcoves, identity concealed behind vox scramblers and obscura smoke. Their hands bear acid scars identical to Sister Cassia's, old hospitaler markings suggesting institutional training repurposed for illegal compassion. They move between intimacy and death with practiced gentleness, providing both services with equal discretion. Payment varies: ration chits, heirloom jewelry, shift rotations, silence. Security operates through desperate necessity. Concealed augers ping transport corridors for Arbite's boot rhythms. Stolen cogitators spoof thermal readings to mask gatherings as machinery fluctuations. Entry passwords change hourly, distributed through networks of former clients who recruit others facing similar deprivation. Every compound purchase follows different routes. Every vial logged in handwriting rather than data streams. Outside, surveillance algorithms detect increasing statistical anomalies. Tech priest Hadron's cross-reference protocols flag correlation patterns between emotional compliance violations and unexplained deaths. Patrol servo skulls return with corrupted footage and incense residue on sensor grills. The enforcement net tightens methodically around sanctuaries that dare provide unregulated humanity. The tender pauses in converted corridors, listening to silence only experienced ears recognize. Somewhere above, red stamps hammer down on violation reports. Peak operational hour finds Mercy House, 7, at maximum capacity. Psychic dampeners hum their mechanical litanies while 37 clients occupy booths and mercy chambers, seeking what imperial law prices beyond reach. The air tastes of recycled incense and desperation. In converted alcoves, clarity neutralizers drip through improvised IV lines, while black market peace waits in carefully arranged ampules. The tender moves between chambers with practiced gentleness, scarred hands checking connections and whispering comfort to those who have paid everything for unregulated humanity. The breach begins at 23:47 hours. Shaped charges reduce 3 reinforced doors to metallic vapor, while Arbite's shock troops pour through smoke-choked corridors. Psychic dampeners fail in cascading electrical death, null baffles sparking like dying stars, as emergency lumens bathe everything in blood-red illumination. Servo skulls flood through ventilation shafts, their picked capture lenses recording evidence for tribunals that will convene before dawn. Worker Hale and his wife occupy Booth 7, clarity neutralizers threading their arms through stolen medical lines. 43 seconds of authorized embrace per feast day has driven them to purchase unmonitored connection, their sanctioned intimacy permit, 7 Theta, worthless against the hunger for unregulated touch. The fourth tier's free when shock malls crash through their alcove, spilling forbidden chemistry across recycled air filters. His final word is her name, the same violation that condemned the guardsmen in Sister Cassia's ward. Shock staves discharge neural fire through their intertwined bodies, violation and punishment merged in systematic precision. 3 chambers deeper, Terminal Vex receives peace from his daughter's trembling hands, while breacher charges detonate around them. Official Red Sigil 49. A was denied due to marginal recovery potential, forcing them to purchase black market mercy with shift credits and promises of silence. The diluted ampule breaks against his lips as the alcove collapses, unauthorized compassion mixing with plaster dust and blood. She dies, shielding his body from falling debris, their forbidden mercy becoming shared grave beneath tons of imperial justice. Grandmother Vess and her granddaughter occupy the Mercy Chapel when assault begins. The child's fingers trace pulse beats at her grandmother's wrist, the same gesture denied during regulated comfort visits, while peace flows through stolen IV lines. Shock rounds shatter the brass aquila above their heads as Vess whispers forbidden lullabies through failing breath. Unregulated death, arriving simultaneously with Arbite's execution squads. The child reaches for her grandmother's hand as shock malls answer with calibrated violence. The tender moves through collapsing corridors with desperate efficiency, destroying evidence while evacuating remaining clients through hidden passages. Acid burns through data slates containing client records as flames consume stockpiled ampules and clarity neutralizers. Emergency protocols activate blast doors, sealing escape routes, while Xian and the tender remains behind to ensure complete evidence destruction. A hidden door protests, then yields to explosive charges. Arbites breach the final chamber as incendiary charges ignite remaining chemical stores. Through smoke and fire, shock troops corner their primary target against corrugated walls lined with burning ecclesiarchal cloth. The tender's Vox scrambler fails in electrical chaos, revealing a voice worn smooth by decades of liturgical recitation. Cardinal Matthias Voss removes his concealing hood with hands bearing identical acid scars to Sister Cassia's. Chemical stains from years of clandestine ampule preparation, burns from unauthorized mercy administered in shadow. Around his neck, a cord holds a pressed violet sealed in resin, the same flower from his original ledger, preserved through 30 years of secret rebellion against his own creation. I designed the machine that made this necessary, he whispers as shock staves charge around him. The facility burns as Arbites drag Voss through corridors filled with corpses of emotional criminals and mercy thieves. Servo skulls record everything for compliance audits. Unauthorized embraces terminated mid-gesture. Illegal mercy interrupted by imperial justice. Human compassion systematically transformed into criminal evidence. Order kisses the underground heart. It leaves a wound that festers in darkness, spreading through networks that understand the true cost of necessary distances. Tribunal Theta Prim convenes in chambers stripped of ornamentation, where pressed flowers once decorated administrative ledgers. Cardinal Matthias Voss occupies the penitent's cage, scarred hands clasped while confessor judges enumerate charges spanning 30 years of systematic betrayal, emotional treason, mercy violation, unauthorized compassion, administrative heresy. On the wall behind them, 2 seals hang in bitter irony: sanctioned intimacy, permit 7 Theta, and Red Sigil 49A. Emblems of the apparatus Voss built and then betrayed. His testimony begins with measured conviction. The decree of necessary distances emerged from genuine care for humanity's survival. he states, voice carrying the same cadence that once convinced the Senatorum Imperialis. I watched Primarchs fall through affection, saw defenders hesitate when loved ones turned demon. Connection created vulnerability that chaos exploited with surgical precision. The Medicae Mercy protocols followed identical logic. Battlefield triage during Terra's siege forced impossible choices between sentiment and survival. Unregulated compassion killed more than it saved. I believed institutional love was safer than personal attachment. The transformation began with his daughter Lydia's gene plague diagnosis in 978 M31. Terminal. Condition: suffering duration projected at 47 days. Recovery probability statistical 0. Her petition for Red Sigil 49A followed proper channels through Medicae Prime to ecclesiarchal review. Documentation perfect according to protocols Voss himself designed. The denial arrived stamped in regulation red ink. Marginal recovery potential detected. Peace authorization suspended pending reassessment. She begged me to end her pain, Voss whispers to judges who process identical denials daily. My own daughter, condemned by my own mathematics. I watched her suffer for 63 days while my systems calculated resource allocation versus compassionate necessity. He prepared the first unauthorized ampule in private chambers, hands learning acid burns that would mark decades of clandestine mercy. Lydia died holding his ungloved fingers, while peace flowed through stolen lines, the same gesture he would later witness in burning Mercy House corridors. That night, I understood what I had truly built, he continues, voice steady despite the weight of confession. Not protection, but control through the weaponization of human compassion. We made citizens love institutions so completely they could no longer love each other without permission. Auditor Thane testifies next, presenting surveillance evidence with visible reluctance. Sister Cassia watches from witness galleries, clutching her breviary where a pressed flower lies hidden among litanies. Tech priest Hadron displays picked captures of unauthorized mercy, administered in shadow, while servo skulls record every gesture for compliance audits. Sentence follows doctrine. Execution by macro guillotine at dawn. The square fills with mandatory attendees, functionaries dosed with clarity compounds at parade strength. Rain slicks the execution plinth where Voss kneels without hood, the pressed violet visible around his neck until the final moment. The blade falls clean, but something unexpected occurs in the observation galleries. Despite chemical conditioning, tears flow down regulation cheeks. Worker Hale's widow weeps openly. Junior confessors struggle against unauthorized grief. The emotional contagion spreads through the crowd like recognition. 3 forbidden seconds where mercy and love reveal themselves as bodies touching, breath shared, names spoken rather than administrative abstractions. Voss dies a traitor to his own machine and becomes its unintended martyr, proof that even systematic suppression cannot fully extinguish human connection. Interrogator Rail's surveillance algorithms detect correlation patterns that reveal chaos infiltration through systematic exploitation of Imperial emotional suppression. Cross-referenced data streams paint a disturbing statistical picture. Former Mercy House clients convert to Slaaneshi cults at rates 17 times baseline population. Citizens flagged for emotional compliance violations disappear into underground networks at accelerated frequencies. The enemy has learned to hunt through wounds left by necessary distances, transforming Imperial protection into recruitment infrastructure. The targeting methodology operates with predatory precision. Cultists identify prospects through surveillance of administrative grief. Widows denied comfort visits, parents watching children suffer without authorized peace, workers whose embrace violations mark them for enhanced suppression. Recruitment begins with whispered offers in manufacturum corridors during shift changes. We know what you've lost. We can restore it. The approach exploits the same surveillance networks tech priest Hadron uses to monitor compliance, turning Imperial oversight into chaos intelligence gathering. Worker Hale's widow exemplifies the recruitment pattern. Following her husband's execution during the Mercy House raid, she received mandatory clarity compound increases to prevent grief contamination of her work unit. Enhanced chemical dampening left her functionally empty, processing assembly quotas without emotional interference, while authorized grief counseling provided only liturgical responses to personal devastation. When cultists approached with promises of unmedicated connection, she followed willingly into corruption, seeking what Imperial mercy had systematically denied. The corruption operates through calculated progression across 3 tiers. Initial contact provides genuine relief, unmonitored intimacy for the emotionally starved, painless death for those denied authorized peace. Former Terminal Vex's daughter receives the merciful ending her father was refused, administered by robed figures in chambers that smell of incense rather than antiseptic. The experience mirrors legitimate mercy, but occurs outside Imperial oversight, creating psychological dependency on unauthorized compassion. Second-tier corruption introduces excess through gradual escalation. Unregulated touch becomes obsessive contact. Merciful death transforms into recreational dying, with peace ampules replaced by exotic toxins that provide transcendent agony before resurrection through dark rites. Grandmother Vess's granddaughter, traumatized by RBT's violence during the Mercy House raid, finds surrogate family among cultists who gradually replace human affection with demonic possession, masked as deeper connection. Third-tier converts become recruitment assets themselves, their hunger transformed into evangelical fervor for sensation beyond Imperial regulation. They smuggle ampule shells from Medicaid refuse chutes, steal clarity neutralizers from distribution centers, and provide cult apothecaries with detailed knowledge of Imperial suppression protocols. The same administrative expertise that once processed authorized mercy now serves chaos infiltration through intimate understanding of systemic vulnerabilities. Rael's investigation reveals institutional hypocrisy through examination of noble cult cells. Elite participants receive modified compounds, the same preferential chemistry documented in Chapter 6, that provide euphoric transcendence without permanent corruption. Upper Hive cultists experience sensation enhancement while maintaining cognitive function, their damnation carefully calibrated to preserve useful Imperial service. The chemistry of control feeds appetite at both ends of the social hierarchy, creating parallel markets for regulated excess. The Inquisition faces systematic dilemma. Rael's confidential reports to Ministorum leadership document clear correlation. Chaos recruitment increases proportionally with emotional suppression, intensity. Worlds with reduced clarity compound distribution show decreased cult activity. Systems allowing unauthorized mercy experience fewer Slaneshi conversions. The mathematical relationship is undeniable. Imperial emotional control creates the hunger that chaos exploits. Ministorum response follows institutional logic rather than empirical evidence. Enhanced suppression protocols, increased surveillance, expanded clarity compound distribution. The apparatus doubles down rather than acknowledge that necessary distances create recruitment infrastructure for the very enemy they were designed to combat. Cardinal Voss's execution becomes martyrdom, not just for underground mercy, but for institutional recognition of systemic failure. The machine perpetuates itself through willful blindness. Each purged cult creates new emotional voids. Each enhanced suppression protocol generates fresh recruitment pools. The Slaneshi Gambit succeeds not through superior force, but through patient exploitation of Imperial contradictions that transform protection into predation. The networks rebuild like mycelial threads beneath scorched earth, adapting to survive in surveillance gaps left by their own destruction. Mercy House 7's purging scattered the underground heart, but it learned to beat quieter, threading through the Hive's anonymous flows in patterns too subtle for servo-skull detection. Where centralized sanctuary once provided refuge, dispersed cells now practice inherited compassion through micro-gestures that transform regulated compliance into coded resistance. Coded languages emerge from necessity, hiding in plain liturgical sight. Emperor's blessing upon your service becomes request for unauthorized comfort time. May his light guide your rest, signals availability of diluted peace compounds. Harvest reports refer to upcoming mercy administrations, while ration recalibrations indicate clarity neutralizer needs. Sister Cassia learns the vocabulary from former clients who now clean her ward, their mop rhythms tapping messages against floor grating. 3 strikes for unmonitored presence, 4 for promised return. Micro-gestures replace embraces that triggered compliance violations. A ration chit folded. Once means I am with you. Twice means I will stay. Sleeves pulled to the 2nd notch offer comfort. To the 3rd, farewell. During mandatory prayers, synchronized breathing creates intimacy through shared rhythm rather than physical touch. Eye contact held for precisely 3 seconds conveys affection within surveillance parameters, while exceeding emotional distance protocols through accumulated meaning. Love persists through reduction to essential elements, compressed into moments too brief for algorithmic detection. Ritual sharing of diluted peace continues under heightened secrecy. In quiet hours before shift changes, families gather beside cots with contraband ampules disguised as medical samples. The sharers wet their lips but do not drink, touching the rim to patients' mouths in sequence. 3 breaths between each contact. They whisper modified litanies. Suffering divided is still suffering, but it is shared. The chemistry becomes sacrament, binding participants through collective violation of imperial law while providing merciful relief without termination. Inherited mercy flows through generational transmission disguised as traditional observance. Grandmothers teach lullabies that contain coded emotional support, melodies bypassing chemical suppression through cultural memory. Fathers pass mechanical skills while simultaneously transmitting ampule preparation techniques from Medica waste, compassionate knowledge wrapped in legitimate instruction. Children learn both songs, devotion above, comfort below, receiving survival skills and merciful traditions as cultural inheritance. Emotional inheritance operates through parallel channels. Adolescents receive informal education in surveillance evasion presented as safety protocols, learning to love within systematic constraints through inherited wisdom from purge survivors. They practice controlled empathy through games appearing regulation compliant while building capacity for unauthorized connection. The inheritance persists despite clarity compounds, each generation maintaining humanity through accumulated resistance techniques. The dispersed structure provides resilience through redundancy. No central authority coordinates activities, preventing cascade failures when cells face discovery. Knowledge transfers through workplace conversations, prayer interactions, shift overlaps. Underground apothecaries hide medications in prayer oils, communion wafers, incense ash mixed with rations. Sister Cassia adjusts her breviary in specific patterns, signaling empathy to those who understand. On her station wall hangs a pressed violet in honey-colored resin, Cardinal Voss's flower placed by unknown hands. Everyone understands its meaning. Some lessons persist, unrecorded, in spaces between heartbeats. 3 centuries under the decree of necessary distances have produced measurable alterations in human behavioral patterns. Clarity compounds suppress oxytocin production across entire populations, while peace protocols eliminate unscripted grief responses through systematic conditioning. Administratum productivity reports celebrate higher efficiency ratings and reduced public disorder incidents. Field ethnography reveals the hidden ledger, civilizations of functional sociopaths who mistake emotional emptiness for imperial virtue. The systems designed to forge steel citizens have instead bred porcelain, hard-surfaced, brittle within, held together by fear and routine rather than genuine connection. Guardsman Kyle Thex exemplifies martial consequences after 17 years of CC-11 conditioning since induction age. His service record documents 4 unit decimations with exemplary tactical performance throughout each engagement. When Corporal Vaughn takes orc shrapnel through the abdomen during the Tertius Gamma incursions, Thex administers field dressings according to manual specifications, while his squad mate begs for merciful release. Peace ampules remain locked in officer-only dispensers, requiring authorization chains that battlefield conditions make impossible. Thex observes 6 hours of agonized dying with clinical detachment, experiencing neither grief nor compassion, only mild irritation at procedural inefficiency. His after-action report classifies Vaughn's suffering as acceptable attrition within projected parameters. The chemistry has edited his humanity while preserving his tactical effectiveness, creating a weapon incapable of the empathetic bonds that foster genuine unit cohesion. Mother worker Sana Ventris demonstrates domestic system failure through her relationship with assigned offspring in Mid-Hive Hab 23. Breeding Contract 7 Alpha paired her through genetic compatibility assessments rather than emotional selection, producing 3 children she processes as resource allocations rather than maternal investments. When bone rot claims her youngest, she files Medicaid requests and recites prescribed litanies without distress. Red Sigil 49. A authorization is deferred pending attitudinal rectification after previous vigil violations. During pain episodes, she provides regulation comfort, humming devotional tones at prescribed pitch, maintaining cleanliness protocols, while feeling nothing beyond schedule compliance. Her inability to offer unauthorized mercy or unregulated affection transforms parenting into administrative function, producing offspring who learn emotional emptiness as baseline human condition. Confessor Valdris embodies religious dysfunction while preaching love and mercy from bronze pulpits across Saints Without Names parish. Decades of CC7 compounds maintain his access to parishioners while desensitizing oxytocin receptors beyond recovery. He delivers sermons describing imperial compassion through liturgical abstractions, citizens loving the faceless emperor, showing mercy through proper channels, while remaining chemically incapable of experiencing the emotions he advocates. When parishioners seek comfort for unauthorized grief, he provides regulatory responses rather than human. Recognition. His blessing of dying children follows scriptural procedure without empathetic connection, transforming sacrament into bureaucratic ritual, performed by someone fundamentally unable to comprehend the divine love he represents. Planetary consequences manifest through cascading social dysfunction documented in buried administratum reports. Hive World Mordian Secundus experiences population decline despite maintained breeding quotas as clarity-conditioned parents abandon children through emotional indifference. Agri-World Series Prime suffers harvest failures when workers cannot form cooperative bonds necessary for coordination. Some governors secretly reduce compound potency after recognizing systemic collapse. Governor Thane of Viridin Prime dilutes clarity distributions when psychological evaluations reveal his staff cannot maintain basic working relationships. The ultimate irony persists across sectors. Systems designed to prevent another Horus heresy have created populations incapable of the emotional investment that genuine loyalty requires. Citizens follow orders through chemical habit rather than devotion, processing mercy through procedure rather than compassion. Cardinal Voss's pressed violet, now appearing in multiple locations throughout the sector, symbolizes what systematic suppression cannot fully eliminate. Fragments of humanity growing like flowers in institutional rubble, waiting for a single unauthorized kiss to remind the galaxy what it has lost. Disciplinary notice. 38. F waits on Sister Cassia's cot, its amber seal documenting 17 temporal deviations and 43 emotional compliance breaches. The charges speak in regulation vocabulary: unauthorized sentiment, procedural deviation, systematic subversion through compassionate overreach. She bookmarks the document with her breviary, where Cardinal Voss's pressed violet rests between psalms about necessary distances. Transfer orders to penal medica. Service await final authorization. Enhanced clarity compounds. Supervised administration. The machine processes her humanity as correctable error. Before reassignment, Ward 7 delivers its final test. The Ventress family occupies Alcove 19, their youngest consumed by bone rot's terminal progression, while breeding protocols mandate immediate separation. Genetic incompatibility requires Contract 7 Alpha dissolution. Father reassigned to orbital manufactorums, mother facing sterilization before HAB reallocation. Their dying child becomes administrative inconvenience. Red Sigil 49. A suspended pending resource evaluation, while quarterly ampule allocations conflict with projected death timelines. Standard comfort visits are denied due to previous vigil violations. The parents stand regulation distance apart, clarity compounds flattening their grief into procedural compliance. The child's breathing rattles like broken machinery, while servo skulls track movement through alcoves designed for efficient dying, rather than human farewell. Surveillance apparatus records everything: measured tears, prescribed litanies, emotional distance maintained through chemical necessity. Cassia's final act mirrors Chapter 1 with deliberate precision. From hidden sleeve compartments, she produces black market peace, purchased with final ration credits through networks that survived Mercy House purges. The parents' eyes recognize forbidden hope, while PIC sensors track her approach, recording angles and timestamps for tribunals that will convene before dawn. She begins ritual recitation, words worn smooth by repetition. Benediction of Quietus, terse form. By the Emperor's will, your suffering ends. By his mercy, your service is complete. The surveillance apparatus captures everything: unauthorized ampule, temporal deviation, gesture existing in no manual, yet persisting through institutional memory like inherited rebellion. The kiss falls against the child's forehead, last touch, transforming clinical termination into human recognition. Peace flows through stolen lines, while parents hold ungloved hands in violation of emotional purity protocols. In spaces between heartbeats, mercy becomes resistance, love becomes wound that systematic suppression cannot heal completely. By his grace your soul finds peace, she concludes, then adds whisper meant only for dying: I'm sorry. Auditor Thane's silhouette shifts behind observation glass, stylus hovering between violation report and equipment malfunction record. His amber sigil burns like conscience while shock staves charge in corridor alcoves. Cassia adjusts regulation sheet folds, refusing to acknowledge surveillance apparatus that transforms compassion into evidence. Across the sector, another sister administers Emperor's peace in identical ward, servo skulls tracking identical ritual. Her lips move through static obscured whispers, either authorized litany or forbidden apology, institutional compliance or inherited mercy. The PIC sensors cannot distinguish between regulation and rebellion when both wear the same face of necessary human connection. Individual acts of love persist like pressed flowers between regulation pages, fragile, forbidden, but ultimately indestructible wounds in imperial order.